Russian fighter pilots flying Su-35 aircraft engaging in unprofessional and unsafe behavior over Syrian airspace. That's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Max Villman. I'm a former fighter pilot in the Swedish Air Force on the Gripen fighter, and let's go. So these two videos emerged on Twitter. They were released by the Department of Defense, the US Department of Defense that is, on the 5th of July and 6th of July. And you see MQ-9 footage of RUSMIL behavior Syrian airspace. And before we jump into the videos, you can follow me on Twitter, of course. I tweet about these things all the time. So Max Villman on Twitter, if you want to follow there. What we will see here is Su-35, that is one of the later flanker variants, one of Russia's most potent fighter aircraft. And we see American MQ-9 Reaper, or Predator B. So this is the OG when it comes to drones, OG UAV. Been fighting very many years in the Afghan war, in the Iraq war, and in the war on terror, of course. And this is an updated version of it. And as you can see, it is sort of a propeller here in the back, pushing it forward. Distinct long wings, V-shaped fins here, and on the underside you have several different kinds of cameras, IR sensors, etc., where you can film and also look at IR, etc., and of course you have signal intelligence. And these drones, they are able to drop GBUs, fire Maverick missiles, etc., etc. So they are quite potent when it comes to ISR, and also they have a punch when it comes to delivering weapons. And this was filmed on the 5th of July, and let's look at the video and then I will comment on it. You see a Su-35 in the below, and up there is one of the Reapers. So this is filmed from another Reaper, and this is the footage from the Reaper that the Su-35 came close to. And there they have deployed parachute flares. We'll talk about that in a second here. So a close-up of the flares. Okay, so let's look from the beginning and I will comment a little bit about it. So what we're seeing here is the Su-35, the flanker, and there's a Predator. And after the incidents, I guess, outside of Ukraine airspace over the Black Sea, there were several incidents with drones and Russian fighters. I think that's why we're seeing one Reaper filming the other. So they have employed tactics that are quite common when it comes to fighter aircraft, actually. It's a defensive formation called battle formation, where you fly two fighter aircraft next to each other. You have about 1.5 to 3 nautical miles in between here. And that enables the pilot in each other to look behind each other's backs. Because when you're flying a fighter aircraft, it's quite difficult to bend your neck and check your six. It's an expression you probably have heard from fighter pilot movies. But when you're flying next to each other here with quite a lot of distance, you can easily turn your neck and look behind the other aircraft. So this guy here, he can check behind here quite easily by just looking that way, and the other guy, of course, looks behind him. So this is a tactic that was quite common in the Second World War, where you could have two fighters, and if one was approaching this fighter, for example, this guy here could easily turn in and fire at the bogey that was trying to engage his wingman. So this is the same tactic used here, but with cameras instead of, I don't think the Reaper will go in for guns toward the Su-35, but because of the positioning of the main sensor here, the main camera on the underside of the Reaper, it is difficult to film, and it's difficult when it comes to gimbal limits, and of course the rate of a turn with the camera. So they have probably adopted this tactic. This is speculation on my part, but they have probably adopted this tactic. So they are able to film each other and sort of get this kind of proof here, which then they can then use to protest, etc. So I think that's what we're seeing here, adapted the tactic by the Reaper force. And if we look at the video, again, you see the Su-35 here, you see another Reaper here. This is filmed from one Reaper, filmed on the other. I don't think we can use the metrics here. 167M could be the heading, or it could be a distance, but I think it's the heading in this case. But depending on the setting up of the systems here, I don't know if we can use it. But if it's 167 degrees, that should be the magnetic heading. That should be almost south. 180 degrees magnetic is south. So he's probably looking south here. You also see that they have blurred some of the instruments that is available to the Reaper operator here, so we don't get to the whole picture here. But you see the Su-35 here, he then comes up pretty close to the Reaper, and you see it from the other angle, he comes up pretty close, inspects, and then he decides to bug out. And then you have here the text. Additionally, one Russian pilot positioned their aircraft in front of an MQ-9 and engaged afterburner, dynamically increasing speed and air pressure, which reduced the MQ-9 operator's ability to safely operate the aircraft. So if you take this, for example, this means that if the Reaper was flying here and the Su-35 would stay in front and engage the afterburner, and for him to actually disturb the air here, just flying in front and engaging afterburner, he would need to be very, very, very close for him to burn the Reaper here. I think a more efficient strategy that they have actually used for a Bayraktar drone before the formal beginning of the war, so a Russian, I think it was a Su-27 and a Bayraktar drone, is to, if the drone is flying here, then you come from below or from the side. You fly with high speed, and then you make a high G maneuver in front, either from below up or in front behind, and that leaves wake turbulence. And the higher speed, the more energy you have when you pull, the more G, the bigger and more energy is introduced in this wake turbulence. And if the drone flies into that, that could probably lead to big forces pulling possibly fins or wings apart and making the drone crash. So that would probably be more efficient if you wanted to do something like this, which they have tried before. But just staying in front and engaging afterburner is actually, I don't think that's such a smart idea. But they are willing to take big risks here, almost hitting the drone, which they did before in the Black Sea. And these events represent a new level of unprofessional, unsafe action by Russian air forces. And then they deployed parachute flares in the flight path, so they fly over and in front, and then drop the flares in front, and sort of makes the Reaper almost fly into them. Of course, it's quite a low probability that they would actually hit one of the flares, but these flares, with the parachutes, they stay much longer in the airspace than free-falling flares. And of course, if you fly into one of these, they are burning very, very, very hot, and of course they could damage the Reaper if they hit, or if they get stuck on the airframe. They would probably melt the airframe and destroy the Reaper. So of course, it's a danger for the drone in this case. And you see several flares dropped here. Yeah, so they're burning very, very hot, of course. So that was the first short clip, and the second clip is from the day afterwards, the 6th of July. Here you see the drone operator moving the camera. You see flares here, very, very close to the drone, very, very close, falling. And here's from another picture, so the same tactic adopted here, two Reapers flying side by side, filming each other. The first clip was from this Reaper you see down here. You see how close the flares went, and this is from the other Reaper who's filming the two Su-35s. And here you see the Su-35 dropping the flares just over, actually trying probably to hit the Reaper here. So that was the short clip from the 6th of July. So very, very unprofessional, very, very unsafe. Of course, you could make this as a pretty hostile act, And if a Reaper was to crash because of this, then of course that would be almost the same as shooting down a Reaper. So it could be interpreted as an act of war, actually. So it's very, very concerning. And this is over Syria, where US forces and Russian forces have been engaged in different kinds of standoffs, unsafe behavior, unprofessional behavior several times. So we will see where this goes. Of course, US-Russian relations are not the best. I will probably make a video about, I have made it in Swedish before, but I'll probably make a video in English about other unsafe behaviors that the Russians have employed. As a Swedish Air Force fighter pilot, I also encountered Russians on several occasions over the Baltics. And one official incident was actually talked about by our Supreme Commander, our last Supreme Commander, during a mission with 2 Gripens who were up identifying a Russian transport plane. The operators of that transport plane actually fired flares towards the Gripen fighters while we were up in international airspace identifying them. So that's also, of course, very, very unprofessional. And there's been several instances where Russian fighters over the Baltics have been flying very, very, very close to SIGINT aircraft from Swedish or NATO forces. And of course, these kinds of SIGINT aircraft, there's basically modified transport planes. They don't have any ejection seats or anything, so that sort of close proximity flying to those kinds of assets is also deemed very, very unprofessional, and it's not needed to identify or film what kind of things they have on them. You don't need to fly that close as they have done. So very, very unprofessional. And of course, this 5th and 6th of July footage that we just saw is just one of many in this whole thing. I just hope that we don't see any more escalation, but on this point, of course, that could mean very, very serious business. But I will end it here. If you liked the video, please like the video, leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That really helps with the algorithm and makes me continue to make these kinds of videos for you. Also, you can follow me on social media here. And if you want to support the channel, there's a link to Ko-Fi here if you want to send me a coffee. That would be very much appreciated. But I will end it here, and until next time, fly safe.